Okay, you guys ready to go ahead and get started? Yeah! Good answer. Okay, I'll do a brief introduction for those of you that don't know me and then kind of get started on my topic. So we'll just get started quickly. That's me, Jason, on the left there. Real quick, for those of you who don't know my background, which I guess hopefully lends some credibility to the topic today, I've been out there helping businesses for a long time, worked with Scott and Brian starting in 1999 and Steve as well. Started a few companies along the way, including the call center side of this company years ago that merged with Scott and Brian. And so along the way, helped B2B companies and B2C grow, and seen a lot of things that worked and a lot of things that didn't, and seen a lot of opinions come and go. And so today I was going to tackle kind of a high-level topic and then drill down a little bit into kind of why we do what we do. In the grand scheme of all the things you could do in marketing, why we really feel strongly about some of the things we do as an organization as opposed to all the other things you could do out there. So the topic is inbound marketing versus outbound marketing. And to kind of frame up what those mean up front before we dive deeper into how to use them and what you should use primarily, we'll look at what they are by definition. So inbound marketing these days, and it's kind of an evolving definition because a lot of these things are really brand new and keep changing, but inbound marketing, the premise is you are pulling people to you. You're doing things to attract people to find you, to trust you, to come to you. You're dressing yourself up to look like the smartest, best solution out there, and so you're really exhausting resources to appear as good as you can in front of the people that you want to attract, but you're pulling them towards you, okay? So all of these activities, blogging to look intelligent in the marketplace, hopefully people will contact you from that. Search engine optimization, we all have seen companies put lots of resources into getting way up onto the front page of Google, again, to try to bring people in. And a lot of social media as well. So casting that net, you'll hear that term a lot as we go through, casting a net out there, hopefully not too wide, but as we're going to see with inbound marketing, often that can happen with some of these things that you're looking at. So keep these activities in mind. So outbound marketing has kind of been reduced to a pretty short list. Things like using the phone to push your message to prospects, using email, connecting with people on LinkedIn and direct mail. So you are, with outbound, you are seeking someone out. You're pushing your message to them in a way where you're soliciting them. I mean, call it what it is. You're selling something to that prospect. So I guess the debate for today, or the talk, is which one to use for business to business primarily. I don't mean exclusively either. I mean, if you're researching what to do, if you're in a position where you're thinking we need to do more, and you jump online or you start talking to people, that's where the debate begins. And especially now more than ever, because this push towards inbound marketing seems to be all over the place. So again, my hope today is to kind of rein in reality a little bit on some of these activities and what they can do. So I went online and began researching inbound versus outbound and kind of pretended like I was a business owner looking to grow my company from scratch, which I'm a business owner trying to grow my company, right? And so I look out there and I starting to see some references to outbound marketing versus inbound marketing, as inbound being this new thing that is just new and spectacular and everyone loves it. And it's this magic approach to marketing. And then I start seeing outbound marketing being referred to as old marketing, and kind of this dirty pushing your message to people whether they want to receive it or not. And so I again began to probe, and I found like endless graphics like this where, you know, inbound marketing, you end up with the happy face and everyone loves you. And outbound marketing, we're all sad because why? And I was sitting here, why is the idea of outbound marketing getting portrayed this way? And I came up with a few ideas, but at the end of the day, outbound is not a blunt instrument. What it is it's something with a lot of horsepower that, if aimed the right way, can often produce way more results faster than casting this wide net. And sadly, I think, as I was up late kind of going over why we think so differently than everybody else, I think it boils down to people are scared to sell in some cases. And if you think about, and I use this analogy at the end, but we kind of jokingly sometimes boil it down to dating, right? It's so much easier to put a ton of effort into how you look and like going out and trying to appear great and worrying about attracting other people. It's much scarier to go out and actually talk to somebody, to make that attempt to go out and talk to somebody, because you can get shot down. And all the things that can happen with that conversation are scary. And the thought of sitting back and looking so good that people come to you, well, heck, all day long, right? But as we're going to see, I don't think that's reality, and I think it's a big mistake. And again, you look at the research, people are saying spend all your time casting this net to appear as smart and as the perfect solution, but while you're really spending a lot of time casting that net to appear like something, why not just go out and have that conversation? So I wanted to talk through a couple points on this as we look through. Let me check. Okay. So as we think about which one might apply to your business, a couple questions to ask that should hopefully fuel some questions that you'd ask to identify which one might work in your business. One conversation I always have is someone will say, we need more opportunities today. Our business is hurting. We need more at-bats today. And so what do we do about it? And so I often ask people, what are your growth goals? I mean, you should know, you should have lined out, what are your growth goals? Are they, in reality, down to the appointment? Do you need 2 appointments a week? Do you need 2 appointments a month? What's your close rate on those? What are your growth goals? How many new clients do you need? And then you back into that. Well, so say your answer is I need 10 appointments a month. And that's just math, folks. I mean, it's not maybe. If your close rate is this and this is the value of your client, you can back into how many appointments you need. So let's think. I'm starting from 0 and I need appointments today for my business. If that's the case, if you're fat and happy, this may not apply. But if you're reaching out or researching options to get meetings sooner than later, think about, again, the dating analogy. So I need a date tonight. Am I going to spend 9 hours primping and proppering myself, which you guys know I do not? Or am I just going to start going through the black book and calling to see who's available? Which one? If I need, I mean, it's going to be more painful because I'm going to get shot down in the black book for a variety of reasons, but I guarantee it's going to be the path of least resistance ultimately. And I'm not trying to bash Outbound or the preparation to look smart. You can get to that point in the conversation. What I'm suggesting here is if your goals very clearly are to start growing now, and you can define what that is. We need this many appointments today. I would suggest that you can generate those by focusing your efforts on the people that would have conversations with you quicker than you could preparing to look good to attract those same people, if in fact. Does that make sense? It's really speed to the conversation. I mean, our sales guys, our company puts out a lot of content, but we know when we need conversations today to close as many as we do. And we have people contact us, but to get in the door and have those conversations for our business, we found that we can go out and have those more frequently than we can attracting them. And that's a metric in our business. And we know that, and I think it's that way in many business-to-business companies. And unfortunately, again, probably because fear of that conversation, they're thinking, well, we need conversations today. Let's just, let's blog more. Let's put out more content online to expose ourselves to more people, when in fact they're not doing the ask. So if your growth goals do not match, if they're now, you need to ask yourself what can be done today, tomorrow, to have those conversations. And preparation to look and appear like an expert takes longer than it does to get the conversation to explain how smart you are, if that makes sense. This is another metric that I use when I'm talking to people about where to start with their business, who to go after. People will say, out of everyone I could sell to, I don't even know where to begin. I offer these services to this type of market. Where do I start? And one question I always ask is, can you define who you're selling to the point where you could build a spreadsheet of 2,000 or 5,000, but you could actually build a spreadsheet. And here's two examples. Are you selling to moms, new moms? If so, the spreadsheet would be however many, millions and millions of people. It would be overwhelming and it wouldn't make sense. Are you selling to banks with $1 billion in assets? You could build that list. Are you selling to companies with 50 employees or more? You could build that list. Are you selling to any business that has a computer? That's a pretty overwhelming list. But if you can articulate that there's a type of company you can profile and put on a list, then you can go after those companies. And I know that sounds so simple and like a no-brainer, but think about what most companies do. They will cast this net out there to every type of company on the web, trying to attract so many different types of organizations with so much different methods, different content, different ways to attract them. And the mistake that they're making is you could be spending that same time digging through that organization to find out who to talk to. And if you can make that list of targets and spend your energy going after that select few, you often, again, just the time cycle, you learn more about that target group, how far you're going to get into it, just by tackling that group, that segment, over and over again, as opposed to just a really, really wide net. And again, it sounds like a no-brainer, but most companies don't put an effort towards a type of prospect. And we've all seen it. They say, I want to sell to every company in my market that's got more than 10 people. Well, who have you had success with the most? And that leads right into, if you think you can actually articulate a list of companies you can do business with, the next is to ask, out of those, who's the best? And what we're doing is we're drilling down to the point, and I'm just going to kind of jump ahead. I feel like what a lot of people don't do is boil it down to, we are good at selling to banks with 50 employees, and here's why. They keep it up at we're good at selling to companies with computers. Or they leave it broad and they don't narrow it down and assign a value prop to it. And in this, and here's why this comes into play. If you don't know who your best prospect is and why, then you may need to cast a wide net, because you're trying to attract a lot of people and you don't really know what's attracting them. You don't know why people are buying from you. You don't know why one company chose you over another company. And unless you've done that soul searching and say, banks like doing business with us because they find value in this service, and we like doing business with banks because they're a big margin for us as a company. Again, if you can define that, and the answer is, yeah, I know who my most profitable customer is. There's no reason to go after anyone else. And again, kind of a no-brainer, but most of the inbound, all of the inbound activities we saw up front would not be able to target a bank with 50 employees in my area that looks like this, or for our HVAC clients, a company with this many units on top, and this is the facility manager. You couldn't be that specific online. Whereas if you can tell me, yeah, Jason, you know what? If I can talk to a business owner that has a facility manager that has this many buildings with this many units on top, I have something to say to the guy. I can tell him what we've done and how we can save him money. Why would you go after anyone else or spend $1 on doing so? And if that's the case, you have to go outbound, because it makes no sense to try to be able to track that specific of an individual. You can supplement what you're doing, and I'll get to it in a minute. You can supplement what you're doing with inbound, but again, you have to break it down to, if you know that clearly that that's your customer, you should not waste a minute casting a net beyond that group, because you're wasting your salespeople's time and you're wasting your resources. And if I flip back to the inbound activities, look at that list and think of how many of the companies we talk to, and even some of the companies we're working with, will say, well, yeah, we've got this massive organic SEO campaign because we want to be on the first page of Google for this term, and it's costing us thousands of dollars a month. And then they tell you in the same sentence, but boy, if we had more conversations with local banks, would be a totally different story. And yet they're optimized on Google for something much more broad. It just doesn't make sense to cast a net any wider than who your best, highest revenue prospect is. This is kind of a slippery slope slide, I guess. Most of the conversations I saw on debating inbound versus outbound revolved around the fact that you have to educate your prospect before they want to buy from you. So a lot of the inbound strategies involved, we want to provide our prospect with a bunch of information so they can begin to see the problem. If they're looking around, that was the big one. If they're looking around, we want to position ourselves as the experts in the industry. So if they're looking for a way to reduce their IT costs or reduce their energy costs or find a better financial partner, we want them to see that our solution is the best, okay? The problem with that is, what if they don't know they have a problem, or they have no idea that your type of solution exists, which is a lot of the time the case. If you're talking to a company that has an IT person and they have no idea that the option exists to outsource that and possibly save costs, how are they going to find all your inbound traps you've set from them on the internet? They're not looking for anything like that. With our pipeline service, 1 out of every 4 sales calls I used to hear, I didn't know anything like that even existed. I didn't even know that was an option. So we spend our time educating that person. And so I throw the question out. If I had to explain something to you, it's just so much easier to have that conversation than it is to try to trickle enough information out there to make you aware of a problem you don't know exists, then get you thinking enough about the solution to engage me. If you're selling something where the majority of your prospects don't know they have a problem or your solution even exists, I think that outbound is absolutely the fastest way to get that awareness to them, is to have that conversation. The problem with this, though, is this gets back to, and we go back to the slide with the frown face and the smiley face. The culture is, well, what if they don't want my product? I don't want to offend them. I don't want to sell them. I don't want to, God forbid, I have to get into a sales conversation and win them over. And my argument is, you shouldn't be in sales, and you should be looking at the fact that you are providing a benefit. And if you're in marketing and you're worried about having the conversation that I know enough about your business that I think I have a solution to a problem you don't even know exists, that wins people over. That positions you as the expert, not just shoving a bunch of expertise information out there and, again, waiting for them to have that thought in their head, I wonder if there's another solution. That could take forever. And so I had a note on here. Let's see. So one big question, I guess, here, or a spin-off of this one, is is, do you know your prospects, kind of a sub-question, do you know your prospects enough to have the conversation that would occur here? And here's what I mean by that. Most companies seem to be putting out a lot of information that is a little bit generic, and on the, if you have this problem, we think we can help. They're unwilling to say, we think you have a problem. Again, because that's not our culture to say, I think you have a problem. But if you know your clients enough, you can say that. And I think where Inbound has failed is all the content out there is pushed towards attracting somebody without offending them a little bit. And what I'm saying here is, if you know your clients enough, if you've thought through the previous slides, I know I sell to banks, I know I have value, I know that whether or not they're looking for me, I have a solution. You can wrap your head around Outbound because you're going in and you're again saying, whether or not you recognize a problem, I know you well enough, I know there's a solution to a problem you don't know you have, let's talk about it. You can only really do that, I think, with Outbound, to articulate that deeply that they may have a problem they don't know exists. So a couple success steps to Outbound that I think can, if you choose to do it, start it off in the right way, avoid some traps, and honestly really turn it into what I think all marketing should be, which is a return on your investment and something you can measure. So I want to walk through a few things. Also keeping in mind, I tried not to bash Inbound here too much because there's a big time and place for it. And we as an organization use Inbound and help companies use it a lot in the B2C space, but in B2B as well. So point number one up here, again, is don't neglect digital tools after everything I've said, because they are a powerful tool, but I think about them differently to have greater success in marketing and with Outbound. And I'm going to start here by using LinkedIn as a great example. And I think LinkedIn is one of the better tools out there in the digital space for B2B. It's just a very pure tool, and it's worked well. But I've seen people use it, and it's kind of cool because it's one of those rare tools you can use as both, Inbound and Outbound. And I just had a meeting this morning with a gentleman that's been using it for Inbound a lot. And I was explaining some of the things we do, our salespeople and myself, on LinkedIn from an outbound way. And the results are insanely different. And I'll kind of talk through, just by having a strategy, how this is different. So Inbound, if you look on LinkedIn and looked on YouTube for how to use LinkedIn, a big part of it is creating a group that you connect people to, and then pushing content to that group, or pushing content to all the people you're connected with. So when you go to LinkedIn, you'll see my name, right, and then an article that we pushed in there. And so a lot of companies are making a really big play to connect with as many people as they can and then push very interesting content. So the guy I was talking to this morning, they were putting all of their efforts into analyzing the members of their group, analyzing their connections, and making sure that every day they had great content going out to this group, so that the moment they had any interest in raising funds, they would see all this great content, agree these guys were the experts, and contact them. And I said to him, that sounds great, and I've seen your content online. Imagine if, knowing that, back up to the questions, that you sell to non-for-profits that are this big, you talk to the person in charge of raising funds, and this is what you've done with 60 non-for-profits so far. Have you ever thought about just every day connecting to 20 leaders of non-for-profits, directly connecting, and when they connect back, tell them in your invite, I'd love to meet with you because this is what I've done. This is how I've helped other non-for-profits like yours. And I don't know you, but I know non-for-profits, and we've done some great things, and I'd love to meet with you. And he was like, do you think how would they respond to that? And I said, they'd probably book a meeting with you. And what's the worst case scenario? They receive your content. But it just totally proved that that mindset of oh no, I don't want to reach out and have to get into that conversation about why I'm better than the next guy. That's what marketing is. And so LinkedIn's a great example of people are swaying so far to this, just make me look smart and make me look attractive. Ask for the date. Go out and ask. And do it well. And like I said earlier, go through that process. Who am I selling to? Who's my best case study? Have those things armed in your back pocket. And then you can begin using even digital tools in the same strategy as how we use the phone and email. So digital tools can help. Another thing I want to say on the digital side, again, being careful not to bash it too much, being that we sell it. Facebook's another great example, and I'll use this quickly. Most companies I talk to that use Facebook as a growth strategy are putting content on Facebook that is seen by everybody. And they're honestly proud of that. They're like, yeah, we got this many views. And when you take a look at who saw their content, it's just sad. Because not 1 out of 10 even live in the US most of the time, honestly. So how do you use it for outbound? Well, you target, if you're selling baby stuff in St. Louis, you can actually target new moms of this age, at this income, that live in this area, that buy on the web, that have a Facebook page, that are associated with this school, that drive this car, that have bought this other baby thing. Wow. I mean, you can put an ad right on that person and chase them around all day. And again, I would argue people are not thinking that way, and they need to. Because if dollar per dollar goes back to the phone call versus the preparation to look good, dollar per dollar, if I can put messages in front of 20 new moms versus spraying that out to all of St. Louis, one makes a lot more sense than the other. The second that I can't talk highly enough about is have a process for anything you do outbound. Phone calls, email, LinkedIn, whatever. And this is one of those components that if you don't have it, don't do it. Because this is how you stay on course and how you ensure that every dollar you spend tomorrow is spent more wisely than the one you spent today or yesterday. And so what I mean by this is the beauty of outbound most of the time versus inbound is once you've tossed your message into the marketplace, you should be able to track exactly how it's performed. And if you're doing it right, you learn from that and immediately calibrate so your next message and next message and next message is that much more powerful. And the only way to do that is to have a process. So again, the way to not fall into the trap is everything should be a number. And this gets annoyingly granular, but it is the only way to do it right. So back up. How many appointments do I need? How many conversations do I need? And it may not even be an actual appointment. How many people do I need to hit my website? How many people do I need to fill out a form? What number do we need coming in? And you need to reverse engineer that to how many do we need going out? And then after how many go out, how many respond? And how many respond, how many can we talk to? And then the next time, and then, typically, you'll send a variety of messages so you can see which one performed better, tweak it, and move on. But having these metrics in place all the way down to how many actual inbound phone calls, leads we're getting, and what happens, and that's where a lot of it, what happens after the lead comes in, right? Which is a metric few people even track. So if I'm an organization and I have 2 salespeople and I'm spending money on pay-per-click over here, which is inbound, okay? And this is a great example. I'm spending $5,000 a month on pay-per-click, an inbound activity, and I'm running ads as targeted as I can get. And I'm paying this salesperson over here $5,000, okay? I can track absolutely the quality of the leads, how many came in, the conversion rate, and most importantly, if one lead came in off pay-per-click and one came in off a phone call from Cole, I can see very clearly after a day or a week that most of the leads that came in from this one activity are taking this long to close, and most of the leads from our conversations are taking this long to close. Well, why is that? It goes back to the net and the spear. When you have an outbound activity, you are choosing who you're talking to. You're choosing who you're talking to. So you're saying, I'm choosing you because I think I know your business and I think I have a value. With inbound, you are sort of taking what you get. You can constrain it, but you're sort of taking what you get. And if X amount of conversations are requiring a lot more effort to bring a prospect up to where they could otherwise be if you just got them on the phone or selected them out of the crowd because you knew about them, you're gonna see quickly where your dollars are best spent. You could only do that with a process that goes all the way back to when that contract was signed and how it got there. And every dollar spent up front should be tracked to that point. And the day may come where you say, man, outbound's not working. We need to do inbound. But how would you otherwise know? I mean, really, there's no other way to know it unless you have that tracked across. Again, I have metrics down there on the bottom as a must. That includes LinkedIn, that includes emails, that includes even direct mail. How many mailers did we send out? Who called? Did they call a specific number? And if you've done that, you really can. Worst case scenario, this is the beauty of it. The worst case scenario is you send your message into the marketplace and learn a lot, which isn't that bad. You know, you used to hear, we blew all this money and we don't know what happened. You hear that all the time. We spent $10,000 and I don't know where it went. Well, if you have a process and measurement in place, the worst case scenario is you say, boy, banks hate that service. You know, we need to talk about something else because that, to those people, this message did not work. And that is something you can build on. And then I think one of the final thoughts here is know your prospects. And it's kind of a broad statement, but I think it makes one of the biggest differences in the ability to use outbound effectively in a way where, again, you get the advantages where it could be faster and it could be just quicker people in the process than outbound. And by that, I talk about things like case studies and sales sheets that we use in our process. And this all boils down to, if you know your prospect's situation enough, you can engage them. You can engage them in that conversation confidently versus waiting for them to engage you. And that's a big mental shift, to be able to be so confident in what you're doing that you're switching the culture. You are now so confident in what you do, you're reaching out to engage other people. Your solution, your cure is so good that you want to tell other people about it. You want to proactively seek them out. And that's honestly can be a culture shift. But I think it's imperative in marketing and sales that you make that shift, because the alternative is knowing that you have the solution, but just this endless perpetual cycle of trying to appear sexier and smarter and better than the next person when you could simply be having those conversations and proactively seeking them out. And I've just, in all of my years turning gray, I have yet to be in an environment where once you knew your prospect, once you knew enough about them to have a confident, articulate, educated conversation, and once you knew who you could sell to, who would buy, I never saw an environment where it wasn't easier to proactively solicit those conversations than wait for them, or not even wait, just to try to attract them in. And so I kind of summarize here a little bit with this. So with all of marketing, we have the opportunity to either sit by the bar and put out the vibe, and try to sit there and think, what can we do? And guys, as you're talking to companies, be alert for that. Ask them, what kind of things are you doing right now? And it's amazing how many of them are trying to appear more, appear better, appear in different areas. It's all preparation. And all of that is good. A lot of it's assumptive, frankly. You assume through all this preparation that you're becoming what they want to see. And saying all these things, why not just go up and ask? If they go up and have the conversation and move it down the path. And all joking aside, fear aside, confidence aside, and I guess maybe some question mark about who you're talking to aside, you would have to agree that most of the time reaching out and having that conversation, or proactively seeking, not necessarily a conversation, but proactively seeking somebody is going to net you what you want faster than doing everything you can to attract that person. Does that make sense after all that? And I know that last thing I said about the culture shift, that's a real deal. I mean, it sounds subtle again, but having the belief that what you are selling is so valuable, so good, so much of what they need, that you have the confidence to reach out and say, no, I don't know you, man, but I know you do this, and I think I have what you need, and I'd like the opportunity to talk about it, is just, first of all, it's becoming rarer and rarer. And as I was talking to this gentleman this morning, being able to utilize Outbound effectively hinges on your ability to have that conversation once you're engaged. And that banks on knowing your prospect and having the confidence to do it. And so many people are just running from this, running from the opportunity to have that conversation because they're scared of no, they're scared of, again, not dealing with a conversation where someone wasn't seeking them out. And I think the alternative is the way to go. So that's all I have for today.